days that followed settled into a rhythm that felt almost foreign in its gentleness. Morning chores returned to their familiar cadence, the kind that didn't involve looking over my shoulder or checking cameras or bracing for unwanted cars on the road. The horses picked up on the change first, calmer, brighter, meeting me at the gates with soft nickers instead of the restless energy they'd carried for months. Even the ranch hands seemed lighter, laughing more and lingering longer over coffee before dispersing to their tasks. Little by little, Cedar Creek was remembering how to be a home instead of a battleground. Some evenings I'd stand at the fence line, watching the sun drop behind the cottonwoods, and realize I wasn't waiting for anything terrible to happen anymore. Peace wasn't something fragile or borrowed now. It was settling, rooting itself deep into the soil the way my father always believed it would, if we just held on long enough. One breezy spring afternoon, Ted's Silverado pulled up to the new barn towing a brand new trailer. Inside were 3 beautiful horses. A 5-year-old, 17.3 hand, black Percheron Frisian thoroughbred cross-gelding with a large white star and snip. A 4-year-old, 17.1 hand Brandenburg Rhinelander cross, dappled Seal Bay gelding with 3 white socks and a blaze. And lastly, a 5-year-old, 16.2 hand Grullo appendix mare with an elongated, blobby white star and 2 diagonal white socks. I decided to call my new friend Calvin, show name Stylish Cavalier, while Ted named his big guy Mickey, show name Mighty Rumble. "The dark bay's yours," Ted said with a smile. "And the Grullo, I got her for Rhonda. Figured we all needed new partners. This big fella's mine." After Rhonda stopped crying happy tears and hugging Ted until he couldn't breathe, she decided to call her new horse Lacey, show name Brilliant Splendor. Ted smiled. Fitting. Charlie looked into her gelding's eyes. They were kind and steady. I gently stroked his face and whispered, "Stylish Cavalier. Calvin." The air smelled of cedar shavings and cut grass. Normal, at last. One evening, I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee in hand and watched the light move across the paddocks. A light spring breeze brushed my cheek like a blessing. Peace lived here first. We fought for it, and we kept it. Some people build empires out of paper and rules, and forget why rules exist. We reminded them. If anyone asks me how we did it, I hand them a mug and say, "Stick to your fences, learn your lines, call the sheriff when you need to, and never let anyone tell you that your lake will be used for their galas." Then I looked out at the trails threading the hills and thought of a girl on a 2-big horse and a mare named Sophie who moved like music and the way land remembers who loves it. One morning, as the sun climbed over the eastern ridge, Ted and I took our horses out for a trail ride. We rode up to check on the pond. "Looks like it's finally back to its normal shimmering self," I said, as I dipped my hand into the cool water. I looked around and sighed. I can't believe how close I came to losing this piece of heaven. "Yes, Charlie girl, but the main thing is that you didn't. You stood your ground and fought back. You protected what's yours, your legacy. I'm mighty proud of you, sweetie." I smiled at him. "Come on, I want to show you something." We rode a little farther up the trail until we came to a large clearing. There, sitting just outside the back tree line, was a brand new house. A cozy, rustic, 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom rancher with an office tucked into the untouched 1,500 extra acres. A covered porch faced the pond. Solar panels gleamed on the roof. A pool and gazebo glowed under string lights. The backyard held a sparkling pool, a grill area, lounge chairs, and a heated doghouse marked Guardian and Tessie's Den. Ted stopped cold, voice catching as he looked at the house. You built me a home?" "Well, Frank, Rhonda, and Brooke also helped. I think you've lived out of motels long enough now," I said. "You belong here, Uncle Ted. You're part of this family, always have been. You and Uncle Frank both. So yeah, no more motels for you." He looked down at the key in his hand as if it were sacred. Your dad would be damn proud of you, Charlie girl. I sure know I am. I smiled and hugged him. I certainly hope so. Mickey nickered. Calvin nickered back. Guardian playfully chased Tessie and Valor through the grass, as if nothing bad had ever happened here before. Tessie, exhausted, flopped across Valor's paws. Sunlight streamed through the birch trees, casting soft shadows on the ground. Some wars end with noise. Ours ended with hoofbeats, a bark, and the sound of two friends finally home. Some promises last a lifetime. Some build one. And then, life kept on building. June came dressed in green. The grass thickened, the air warmed, and Cedar Creek started to feel like itself again. No drones, no threats, no court dates, just the rhythm of chores, horses, and the easy chatter of people who actually belonged there. My birthday slipped up on me like it always did. I expected maybe a barbecue, a lopsided cake, and some good-natured teasing. Instead, when I walked out onto the porch, I stopped dead. String lights looped from the oak branches. Blue and white tablecloths rippled in the breeze. Long tables were covered in dishes and drinks. The old fire pit glowed quietly, and music drifted low across the yard. And people, so many people, clients who'd left during the worst of it. Riders who disappeared when the HOA smear campaign hit hardest. Families I never thought I'd ever see back here again. One by one, they came with soft smiles, birthday gifts, and watery eyes. We're so sorry we left. We believed the wrong person. We know better now. If you'll have us, we want to come back. My eyes burned. You're here, so yeah, you're home. Brooke wrapped me in a hug that stole my breath. Rhonda shoved a plate into my hands. Ted guarded the grill beside his gas-powered four-door Silverado, flipping burgers like a man on a mission. Then another sound rolled up the driveway, a sound you felt in your ribs before your brain caught up. A deep, heavy diesel rumble. Everyone turned. It was Frank's Ford F-550 King Cab crawling up the lane, sunlight flashing across its chrome. A long white horse trailer rattled behind it, dust swirling in its wake. He parked the big truck, shut off the engine, and stepped out wearing the most self-satisfied grin I'd ever seen. "Frank?" I called, already suspicious. "What did you do?" He wiped his hands on his jeans, hooked his thumbs into his belt loops, and said, "Got something for ya, kid." Brooke squeaked. Rhonda actually bounced. Ted smirked, muttering from beside his Silverado, "Oh, this ought to be good." Frank strolled to the back of the trailer, unclipped the heavy latch, and swung the door open with theatrical flair. Conversation died. Even the music seemed to hush. Bootsteps echoed on the ramp. Grayson stepped into the sunlight. Dusty boots, road-worn jeans, shirt creased from the long ride, hair a little mussed, eyes tired and soft, and that crooked half-smile that had no right to hit me as hard as it did. My world stopped. He just stood there, arms open wide, and a mischievous, playful grin on his face. "Happy birthday, my sweetie," he announced. I didn't think. I ran. Guardian yelped in protest as I nearly tripped over him, but I reached Grayson and slammed into him with enough force to make him stagger backwards, laughing. He lifted me off the ramp and held on like he had no plans of letting go. "God, I missed you," he whispered into my ear. The smell of dust, leather, and Grayson wrapped around me like home. "How? When? Frank?" I choked. Frank leaned against his diesel F-550, arms folded, smug as sin. "Picked him up myself. Birthday present. Figured he beats anything I could wrap." Grayson kissed my forehead. "Extended POAs signed. Frank's got custody of my land until we have an heir old enough to take it, and I wasn't spending one more day away from you." The yard erupted. Cheers, clapping, laughter. but for a long moment it was just his heartbeat under my ear and the feel of his arms around me again. He was home. He was really, honestly, home for good. By the time the sun slid down behind the trees, people had settled at the tables for dinner. Lanterns swung gently from the branches. The air smelled like grilled food, cake, and summer. I sat at the head of one of the long tables, flanked by Rhonda and Brooke. Grayson sat across from me between Frank and Ted, talking quietly, catching up between bites and stolen glances. At some point, Frank stood and tapped a fork against his glass. "All right, listen up, all you freeloaders," he called. "Birthday girl needs a proper toast." People chuckled, glasses lifted. "To Charlie," Frank said, his expression softening, "who fought like hell for this place, kept her head, when everyone tried to take it from her, and proved exactly why this ranch was never theirs to claim. You're more stubborn than any horse I've ever met, kiddo, and that's saying something." Laughter rippled around the tables. Ted stood next, clearing his throat. "To my goddaughter," he said. "Your dad would have been, oh, so proud. I'm proud, and I'm damn glad I'm not chasing this mess from a motel room anymore." More laughter, more clinking glasses. Finally, Grayson pushed his chair back and stood, heart in his eyes and nerves in his hands. I've got one more thing to add," he said. Frank's smile turned downright dangerous. Rhonda's eyes widened. Brooke slapped a hand over her mouth. Even Ted arched a knowing brow. Grayson looked straight at me. "Charlie, this last year has been hell and healing all rolled together," he began, voice steady but a little rough. "I watched from too far away while you stood your ground and fought for this place when most people would have folded. You didn't. You never do." He moved around to the end of the table, every eye following him. "You've always talked about legacy," he said, coming to stand right in front of me. "Your dad's, your granddad's, this ranch, these horses, this land. But somewhere along the line, you became my legacy too." My heartbeat thundered in my ears. He took a nervous breath, dropped to one knee in the grass, and pulled a small box from his pocket. Rhonda squealed. Brooke started crying on cue. Hillary gasped. Ted muttered, "'Bout damn time." "Charlene Hale," Grayson said, opening the box to reveal a simple, beautiful ring that caught the lantern light. "I love you. I always have, ever since we first met. I love this land because it's yours. I want to build a future with you, for us, for whoever comes after us, for both our properties and everything tied to them. Will you marry me?" The world blurred. I laughed, a breathless, choked sound, and felt tears spill over. "Yes," I managed. Then louder. "Yes, of course, yes." He slid the ring onto my finger. People cheered, glasses clinked, someone whistled, Frank clapped so hard the table rattled. Ted blinked a suspicious amount for a man who didn't cry. Grayson stood and pulled me into a kiss that tasted like promise. For the first time in a long time, the future didn't feel fragile. A year later, spring came back softer. We held the wedding beside the pond at Cedar Creek. White water lilies floated on the surface like tiny lanterns, and dragonflies skimmed the glassy water. The cedar gazebo was wrapped in eucalyptus and white roses. I wore an ivory dress with a lace bodice traced in delicate vinework and a soft tulle skirt that drifted like mist when I walked. Wildflowers were embroidered along the train. Rhonda stood beside me as maid of honor in sage green with flutter sleeves. Brooke and Hillary were my bridesmaids in matching sage gowns with different necklines to suit them. We carried bouquets of white peonies and eucalyptus tied in pale ribbon. Ted walked me down the aisle, his arm trembling. "Your dad would have been bursting his buttons," he murmured. "Good," I whispered back. "Someone has to." Grayson waited beneath the arch, Frank at his shoulder as father of the groom. Guardian wore a bow tie and took his job very seriously. Tessie toddled proudly down the aisle with the rings in a little pouch. When Grayson saw me, his eyes shined and his breath caught in his throat. The pastor smiled. I understand you both wrote your own vows. Grayson went first, voice full and steady. Charlene, every time I searched for home, I found you, he said. In your stubbornness, in your courage, in the way you refuse to quit when life tries to knock you down. You're my peace, my partner, my family. I promise to love you, protect you, respect you, and build our future with you for as long as I live. Then it was my turn. I drew in a deep breath, feeling every year of fighting and surviving settle behind the words. Grayson, when everything around us fell apart, you called to comfort me, I began. When I doubted myself, you believed in me. When I didn't think I could stand, you held me up with words of encouragement. You've been my calm in every storm. I tightened my fingers around his. And the truth is, there were years when your life was nothing but storms. You were sent on assignments no one could talk about, in places you couldn't name, doing things you couldn't explain. I didn't know where you were. I didn't know what you were doing. All I had were the few calls you could make from whatever unknown location you'd been sent to. I had to trust that somewhere out there you were doing what you do best, helping people I would never meet. His eyes glistened. But with me, I continued softly, everything changed. You didn't have to support from a distance anymore. You didn't have to vanish into silence and secrets. You showed up, here, in person, for every fear, every fight, every hard day. You didn't just help me survive. You helped me build something better. I touched his cheek. You once helped strangers from places I'll never know. But now you're here, building forever with me. I promise to walk beside you through every season, to raise our children with you, and to build a life worthy of everything we fought to protect. The pastor grinned. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride.
He did. Thoroughly. No one complained. The reception stretched across the picnic area near the cross-country course. Lanterns swayed in the warm breeze. Horses grazed along the fence line, tails flicking lazily. Music floated under the stars, and people danced barefoot in the grass. Rhonda gave a teary, hilarious speech. Brooke added a few embarrassing childhood stories. Frank talked about watching Grayson grow up. Ted talked about watching me grow up. There were jokes, there were tears, and more than a few threats made in jest about what would happen if anyone ever tried to mess with this family again. Later on, when the music softened and most guests drifted toward their cars, Grayson and I wandered down to the pond, hand in hand. Moonlight slid across the water. Fireflies blinked over the reeds. The ranch hummed with the quiet sounds of night. He looked out over Cedar Creek and Frank's land beyond, a long, gentle breath leaving him. Someday, he murmured. All of this, your ranch and my acreage, it'll go to the next generation. My heart thudded against my ribs. Grayson? I said softly. He turned toward me. Yeah, sweetie? I took his hand and guided it to my stomach. Remember when you came home for a short time? About 2 months ago or so? He thought for a minute, then smiled. Yeah, how could I forget? We skinny dipped in the pond under the stars. Very memorable. He grinned again. Well, I don't think you'll have to wait very long for that next generation. Or an heir. His breath hitched. His eyes widened, searching my face. Charlie, are we? Tears burned my eyes as I nodded. You're going to be a dad. He pulled me into him with a sound that shattered something in my chest in the best way possible. God, Charlie, he stammered, laughing and crying at the same time. We're having a baby? I leaned back just enough to see his face. Actually, we're having babies. He blinked. Babies? Fraternal twins, I whispered. A boy to inherit your land, and a girl to take the reins of mine. He staggered a half step, grabbing my waist to steady himself. You're serious? I nodded, smiling through tears. Yeah. I wanted to tell you tonight. Just us. Just here. He cupped my face, his thumbs brushing tears from my cheeks. This is everything I ever wanted and never thought I'd have. We stood there for a while, wrapped in each other, listening to the soft lap of the water against the bank. Grayson? I said quietly. If someone else ever ends up in a situation like we did, an HOA trying to steal everything they've worked for, pushing past every line, what would you tell them? He thought for a moment, eyes roaming the dark outline of the barns, the arenas, the pastures. I'd tell them they're not powerless, he said. To document everything, keep records, take photos, call the sheriff when the line gets crossed, get a good lawyer, lean on the people who love them, and above all, never let anyone, HOA or otherwise, convince them that their home doesn't belong to them. I nodded against his chest. We survived hell. And we built something beautiful out of it, he replied, kissing my cheek. He took my hand again, his fingers threading through mine. Ready to go home, Mrs. Alexander? I smiled, feeling the steady flutter of 2 tiny heartbeats beneath my own. Yeah, I breathed. Let's go home. At that moment, Grayson didn't waste any time. He spun around and ran back toward the house, his arms flailing like someone who'd just won the lottery. In his case, I guess he had. I could hear him yelling, and I chuckled to myself. Hey, Ted, Frank, Dad, have I got news for you guys? Woohoo! Under the birch trees, with the stars bright over Cedar Creek and the future quietly unfolding inside me, the ranch exhaled, and finally, rested.